was nervous to buy Bitcoin. I was an institutional investor, had lots of clients, had the wirehouses as clients. It peaked back in 2017 at like 20,000 and then it crashed after that. So once I got comfortable, me and my team, we made a $100 million purchase of Bitcoin in the 16, 17, 18, 20,000 zone. This was like sort of say October to December of 2020. But then we made more purchases. We made purchases at 69,000 in November. And so we scaled into it. Clients called me an idiot for being an investor in Bitcoin. By the end of 2021, they called me a genius. But if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be bold and you want to adapt your business to the future, you have to be willing to take those hits as a human being.
How did you get so fascinated by the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies?
Well, I was a skeptic. If you followed my career, and I wrote this in my book, I just wrote a book. Michael Saylor wrote the foreword called The Little Book of Bitcoin. And the book is about Bitcoin, yes, but it's also about my odyssey into Bitcoin. And it's about other people's odysseys, whether it's a Stan Druckenmiller or a Ray Dalio or a Paul Tudor Jones or a Michael Saylor. Many of these people start out as skeptics of Bitcoin. They don't really understand it. And then if they do the homework on it, I submit to you, your viewers and listeners, if you do the homework on Bitcoin, you generally go towards it. Say if there's 100 people and they're super smart people, very intellectually curious, and I said, okay, I'm going to spend the next 6 weeks learning about Bitcoin, meeting people like yourself, reading everything, the white paper, going to talk to core developers of Bitcoin. When they're done, they will generally be a Bitcoin proponent. They will generally go towards Bitcoin. I would say of 100 people, 95 will do that. Maybe there'll always be 5 people that'll be the skeptic and hate it no matter what. But to do the homework is to go towards Bitcoin. And so for me, I was a skeptic. I read in the book, I actually met Hal Finney. I think you know who he is. Yeah. Peter Diamandis introduced me to him back in 2012. And he was explaining Bitcoin to me. I did not understand it. Of course, everyone wishes at that time that you did. And by the way, even if I understood it and liked it, I probably wouldn't even known how to buy it at that time. But I didn't understand it. When I got to the White House in 2017, there were 2 Federal Reserve officials. They had published a white paper on the digitization of the U.S. dollar. You can go back midsummer 2017. And they were in the White House talking about this. And I said, well, what do you mean like a digital dollar? I said, well, we would digitize the dollar over the blockchain. I said, the blockchain like Bitcoin? Yes, like Bitcoin. And I was like, oh my God, I am so out of it. I'm a 53-year-old man. I think Bitcoin is bullshit. I don't understand it. There are 2 Fed people talking about digitizing the US dollar on the blockchain. I better get up to speed on this. I owe myself, I owe my family to get up to speed on this. Boom. A couple of days later, I got fired from the White House. I went back to Skybridge. I bought the URL skybridgebitcoin.com and I started doing the homework. But even then, I was nervous to buy Bitcoin. I was an institutional investor, had lots of clients, had the wirehouses as clients. Bitcoin was speculative. Bitcoin was volatile. I think it peaked back in 2017 at like 20,000 and then it crashed after that. And so now I was looking at these prices. I was like, wow, this is things like an 80, 100 vol security, asset, token, whatever you want to call it, commodity. It's too dangerous. I don't want to buy it. So I wrote down 3 things. I said, if Bitcoin reaches these 3 things in my mind, we're going to buy Bitcoin. Number 1, will it scale? Will it get to 100 million wallets? Number 2, can I get comfortable with U.S. regulation of Bitcoin? Can I get comfortable with the future regulatory environment for Bitcoin? And then the third thing is, where can I store my Bitcoin? Because as an older person who's a little bit technophobic, I didn't want to have a cold storage wallet with my own catchphrase. And if I'm going to buy 9 figures of Bitcoin for my institutional investors, where can I put the Bitcoin? And so 1, heading towards 100 million wallets, maybe 80, 85 million wallets, getting towards the end of 2020. Number two, the IRS deemed Bitcoin tangible property. So I didn't learn a lot in law school, but I did learn one thing, that property in the United States is sacrosanct. You can come with a Democratic president, a Republican president. We have 900 years of legal precedent dating back to the Magna Carta, of common law precedent on the integrity of property and the sanctity of property in the United States. And so if Bitcoin is deemed intangible property by the IRS, it's going to be very hard to take it from you. Okay, without representing fair values, it'd be very hard to make it illegal in the United States. And so even though the regulatory environment wasn't fully articulated, I said, well, that is a precursor for a favorable long-term regulatory environment. And then the third thing, of course, is Fidelity was offering storage, NYDIG was offering storage, Coinbase Pro was offering successful bells and whistles. Places like Bitwise are now like that. And so once I got comfortable, me and my team, we made a $100 million purchase of Bitcoin in the 16, 17, 18, 20,000 zone. This was like sort of say October to December of 2020. But then we made more purchases. We made purchases at 69,000 in November. And so we scaled into it. And clients called me an idiot for being an investor in Bitcoin. By the end of 2021, they called me a genius. And then, of course, Bitcoin crashed. At the end of 2022, I was an idiot. I went from genius to idiot. And then if the people stayed, even though I was an idiot, they stayed. They did very well in 23 and 24. But a lot of people left. And some of the journalists wrote nasty stories about me. They wrote my financial obituary, which is part of this. But if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be bold and you want to adapt your business to the future, you have to be willing to take those hits as a human being.